My version of Disney Pixar Cars 2 would have been released in December 2009, exactly 10 years after Toy Story 2, and it would have began the same way, same exact way, with Leland Turbo giving the opening message to Finn McMissile, his best friend. But after the Cars 2 opening logo, instead of going right to Finn McMissile, it would have gone back to Leland Turbo, who would have been hiding from Acer and Grem as they entered the room he was in. And then he would have accidentally made some noise, which would have got their attention, but he would have fought them off, beat them up badly, but one of them would have caught him off guard somehow, put a boot on him, and forced him to the Crusher. And then, while he was in the Crusher, he would have said stuff like, "You'll never get away with this," and they would have said, "We already have," or something kind of cool like that. And they would have started the Crusher and drove away, but planning on coming back later when he's crushed into a cube. And while they drive off, Rod Torque Redline, in his gremlin disguise, would have came and stopped the Crusher before it could have even crushed him, and Leland Turbo would have kind of been shocked because thinking that Rod Torque Redline is a gremlin. And then he kind of says, like, "Who are you?" And Rod Torque Redline exposes his true self and true identity to be one of the spies, the American spy. And then Rod Torque Redline would have told Leland Turbo everything he knows, and not who's behind it, because they would want to make it so that we, as the people who are watching the movie, find out later on in the movie, which obviously would be better that way anyway. But while Rod Torque Redline would have been talking to Leland Turbo, they would have heard a red gremlin coming, and then they would have beat up the red gremlin and thrown it in the Crusher, and then Rod Torque Redline would have asked Leland Turbo, "Do you have a spare license plate?" And Leland Turbo would have said, "Yeah, why?" And then Rod Torque Redline would have said to trick Acer and Grem to make them think that they crushed you, and Leland Turbo obviously would have caught on to what Rod Torque Redline's plan was. And then, so Leland Turbo would have somehow put a spare license plate in there, and then the Crusher would have crushed the Red Gremlin. The Red Gremlin would have yelled, and Rod Torque Redline would change back into his gremlin disguise and say to Leland Turbo, "You need to get out of here. You need to go hide." So Leland Turbo would have done that and waited for Finn McMissile. And then while Leland Turbo is waiting and hiding from a distance, watching as Acer and Grem take out the cubed gremlin, Acer and Grem thinking that it's Leland Turbo, taking it to Professor Z, Leland Turbo would have squinted his eyes angrily, and then it would have been Finn McMissile's opening scene, which would have obviously been exactly the same. And then when Finn McMissile got to the oil rig, of course, it'd be completely different, because my version would have been so much better and greater than John Lasseter, the ass kisser's version. And then Finn McMissile would have said, "Agent Leland Turbo, this is Finn McMissile, I'm at the rally point, over." Leland Turbo would have responded, obviously, immediately, and Leland Turbo would have pretty much been, urgent to get out of there, because Ace and Graham think they killed Leland Turbo, but they didn't. And then Finn McMissile would have been like, "Just let me snap some photos really quick." And then they would have seen Finn McMissile, and then Leland Turbo as well. But then Finn McMissile and Leland Turbo together, as it should have been, would have escaped together. And then Acer and Graham would have gone after them and then shot the missile thinking that they killed both of them. And then Professor Z would have said, with Finn and Leland gone, who can stop us now? And instead of it opening to Mater, because he wouldn't even have existed, because in my version of Cars, the first one, Lightning McQueen would have never ever gone to Radiator Springs, bullshit lame town. It would have cut to Lightning McQueen's opening scene where he would have been racing for the fabulous Hudson Hornet Piston Cup. And Doc Hudson, by the way, would have been dead in my version. But it would have showed the last race of Lightning McQueen winning the fabulous Hudson Hornet Piston Cup and going back to his Hollywood mansion where like Sally would have been waiting for him or whatever. And then he would have gone back to his mansion and then would have been watching the TV with Sally, trying to have like a nice dinner. Also, in my version of Cars 2, Sally and Lightning McQueen would have had kids by this time. Anyway, they would have seen Francesco Bernoulli talking bad about Lightning McQueen, but then Sally would have been mad and Lightning McQueen as well, and Lightning McQueen would have called in and said he would join the World Grand Prix. And then, while he's getting his awesome badass Cars 2 upgrade, he would have a different character doing that for him. And during that scene, instead of playing a stupid ass fucking remake of an 80s song that sounded like shit, they would have played Empire of the Sun Walking on a Dream, which honestly makes so much more sense to put that song in that movie at that scene rather than a stupid 80s remake, which sounded like ass. And then Lightning McQueen with his Dynaco crew chief and Dynaco pit crew would have gone to Tokyo, Japan for the first race, which Lightning McQueen obviously would have won because he wouldn't have had dumbass Mater to mess him up, to screw him up. And of course, Ron Torque Redline would have gone to the bathroom as usual, but before that, Finn McMissile and Leland Turbo would have showed up at the party where they would have obviously met Holly Shiftwell. And then they would have all three gone into the elevator together, which would have looked so cool if it would have been all three of them. So much cooler. And then, while Miles Axelrod is introducing Lightning McQueen, Ron Torque Redline would have been going in the bathroom, giving out his signal, and waiting for one of the spies to come see him. And then they would have sent Holly Shiftwell, who would have went so much faster in my version, and Ron Torque Redline, also in my version, would have beat the living shit out of Acer and Graham. Not killing them, but beating them up almost to death. And anyway, the spies would win pretty much in my version to shorten up this video. And in my version, what would have been very different is there would have been 6 races, not 3, 6 races in the World Grand Prix. And of course, Lightning McQueen, in my version, would have won every single one of them before going back to his home in Hollywood.